the existence of evil. To some, this may seem bad, and therefore it compels them to punish it. The basis of a morality system. But it deserves explicit clarification. You can't just make a law and not specifically address the underlying core principles that compose its foundation. Define the evil that transcends relativity. Go ahead and do that math. And while you're at it, do the same with bad. If bad is the basis of the punishment of evil, then its functionality begs crystal clear transparency. There's no room for ambiguity. If it's wrong and evil and bad, then lay it bare as to the why and whereof. Here we care about the whys and the whereofs. Over here, we diligently pay sharp attention to every subtle, nuanced detail of the whys and whereofs. So, lay it bare. That's your job. What is evil, hence is wrong, hence is bad, hence is therefore punishable. But you won't really do your job, will you? Nah, you won't. Either you're gonna say A, you don't know, B, it's pain and suffering, or C, that there's no such thing because it's relative. If you don't know, then be gone from this place. These are the halls of philosophy, and those that aren't in any sphere of know revoke their seat. Go don't know out back in the parking lot, not over here. Pain and suffering, you really can't do that. And trust me, I know you're a fucking hero who cares intensely and who wears his heart on his sleeve like a red badge of courage. But you can't put forth such a proposition. Too many people enjoy their pain and suffering. No, what? That's right. Too many people enjoy their pain and suffering. They won't admit to it, but despite all the complaints, it's really special to them. It's sacred. It gives them a purpose and an identity, even if that purpose and identity is a crusade against existence itself. Pain and suffering isn't the wrong that needs to be right. If a man is being tortured, what's fundamentally evil and bad about the situation isn't the pain and suffering caused by the torture. The pain and suffering are a symptom of the evil factor at play here, but certainly do not compose the basis of it. It's a byproduct, not the main meat of the matter. And while the pain and suffering may indeed be bad or wrong, it's second source evil of sorts. We are primarily concerned with first source evil, as it's always better to deal with the inner root cause than to get wrapped up in its outer manifestations. No, it's not suffering. There's too much relativistic wiggle room. And an evil, to even be considered evil, has to be bad and wrong 100% of the time in order to be properly entitled as such. You don't get to hold that title if there's instances where someone is perving on a negative. The masochist comes to mind, just offhand. So it isn't pain and suffering. And speaking of relativity, that brings us to the third option. There's no such thing as evil because it's relative. Well then, so much for the idea of a morality system. And can that be a good thing? Not when it comes to the mind training. Training the mind requires order, and order cannot find ground if there is chaos. So the absence of order in existence is not good. Not unless you want your throat cut while you sleep. If getting your throat cut while you sleep is ever a desirable thing, then yeah, never mind a moral code. After all, it's relative, isn't it? Sometimes we like getting our throat cuts while we sleep, don't we? Yeah! Sometimes we like getting our throats cut while we sleep, don't we? No. Show me a single instance of it. That's all. Until you can demonstrate that, we can pretty much presume to uphold the integrity of law and order. But remember, what's bad about getting a throat cut while asleep isn't because of the value of an existence mattering. It's because if the ego literally dies, then awareness didn't accomplish its contrived purposes. And why is the thwarting of this purpose a negative? Because mastery of the mind training requires discipline, and discipline requires longevity of sustained effort. Mastery of the mind training isn't the result of recklessness. And evil is always reckless. Evil is a passion, and it doesn't matter how well organized or methodical it is. It's still a passion and not a discipline. It's a compulsion, not an exercise. Evil isn't lucid awareness. As much as we'd like that to be true, it isn't the case. And the only reason we wish it to be so in the first place is because we're often simply just too lazy to do the spiritual work. And by the way, a true evil isn't relative simply because a good came to fruition as a result of that evil. The production of good fruit doesn't change the composition of the original sin, so to speak. It's nice when a good condition manifests from an evil action, but that good manifestation doesn't somehow make the previous evil action good. The evil action is still evil. It's just a situation where an evil brought some unintended beneficial consequences. You benefiting from another person's misfortune doesn't make that person's misfortune a positive simply because you benefited. So never mind relative. Relativism is reserved for trivialities. If you're gonna maintain that evil can't be named because it's relative, then you are basically saying that you don't know. In which case, you can join the others with the bleeding throats out back in the parking lot. Not over here. So if wrong, bad, evil is knowable and absolute, but it's not pain and suffering, then what is it? The misuse of force. That's right, Challer. The misuse of force. Or more specifically, to use force against a will. This is the basis of the reason for a moral compass. You can use force in collaboration with a will. That's okay. It's not that evil exists and we must use force against it, but that it's evil to misuse force against a will. And it's important to clarify that it's misuse of force, because sometimes we might have to use a bit of force against a will when the will is was immature or ignorant, like in the case of rearing a child. We sometimes have to force them to do their homework or to go to bed on time, but this isn't evil because the child is too immature to know any better. And pushing a man out of the way of a speeding bus might seem to be using force against his will, but that's only because he was ignorant to the threat. It's obvious why these kinds of cases are a proper use of force, even though they may not be strictly in accord with a will. And I know that there are many of you out there who feel it's your right to impose force against a will improperly. And for those of you who are so inclined, I say, shame on you. You're bad and wrong and evil, and therefore punishable. The misuse of force. The misuse of force. The misuse of force. The misuse of force. That's right, Charlie.